The Democrat-controlled House of Representatives passed two bills late last week, which quietly increase abortion funding and pave a way for abortion on demand. Pro-lifers are speaking out both on the Equality Act and the COVID relief bill. The Equality Act amends civil rights laws to forbid pregnancy discrimination, which pro-life groups warn could be construed to become an abortion mandate if a pregnant woman seeking an abortion claims discrimination if she's denied one. And the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill, which also passed the House, does not include pro-life Hyde Amendment protections, meaning funding could go to elective abortions, abortion coverage, and to pro-abortion groups. Both bills now move to the Senate for consideration. Representative Claudia Tenney of New York joins us now from Capitol Hill. Congresswoman, welcome to the show. First, what's your reaction that your Democratic colleagues push the Equality Act and COVID relief bill through the House while there are these major pro-life concerns wrapped up in them?
Well, obviously, we're very concerned as a pro-life person with a very strong record, not only in Congress, but also as a member of the State Assembly, where we have one of the worst abortion laws in the nation that was passed by our Emmy Award-winning Governor Cuomo and celebrated. Late-term abortion was something that was enshrined in law in New York. So we were to turn to our federal government and the Hyde Amendment for protections and many other protections that the Republican side has championed for life. And now both of these bills are really disastrous in protecting the life of the unborn and our most vulnerable people in our communities. You know, funding Planned Parenthood again, as the so-called COVID relief bill does. But on the Equality Act, we do want to make sure that we protect everyone. We want to make sure that no one's discriminated against, including the LGBT community. But you can do that without discriminating against people for religious protections that are promised them under the First Amendment and guaranteed by our Constitution. So I'm very concerned about where these are going. I'm hoping that there's going to be a sane voice in the Senate to stop these, because we know once they get to the president's desk, he will sign them into law. And we really just don't want to go a step backward when we've made so much progress over the years.
Pro-life groups are warning that the Equality Act and what it could mean for pro-life conscience rights, that it might pave the way for pro-life doctors to be forced to commit an abortion if a woman claims pregnancy discrimination. Do you share those concerns?
Well, I'm concerned about the entire act. Obviously, that's one of the concerns that could potentially come out of that. The funding of late-term abortion and this push that the Democrats are taking us in, which is really the opposite of where our communities are going now. People are becoming more and more pro-life as the so-called science becomes real, as more and more parents are able to access sonograms and realize that, you know, these precious souls, need to be protected. And so we're going to continue to fight for life, as I always have. And we just have to be watchful. I urge everyone to call their senator and tell them not to vote for this so-called Pelosi bailout, we're calling it. It's really not COVID relief. Only 9% of the entire $1.9 trillion bill actually deals with COVID relief. It's full of these pro-abortion, pro-funding of Planned Parenthood type provisions that people aren't aware of when it's cast as a relief bill, which it's not.
Would you support a COVID relief bill that does not have pro-life Hyde Amendment protections?
Absolutely not. We must have the Hyde Amendment protections, and that's being actually circumvented by the Democrats in trying to pass this bill that really casts it as something else. We have to stand for life each and every day. It's a fight and a pledge that I've taken, and we need to continue to do that. Again, I urge all of your audience to call their senators and make sure we stop this bill. We've tried to stop it in the House, but it has gone forward and is going to head to the Senate, and we do not want this to become law. We need to protect life at all costs.
Congresswoman, while I have you, you are a representative in the state of New York, and your governor, Andrew Cuomo, is facing at least 3 sexual harassment allegations, but he's also facing criticism for his 2020 directive in which COVID-positive patients were sent to nursing homes, and there are reports he deliberately concealed data on nursing home deaths. You're calling on him to resign and for the Department of Justice to investigate. Why is that important to you?
The governor has committed a cover-up that I think is reprehensible. It undermines his ability to lead and to govern. Notwithstanding the concerns about the inappropriate behavior of the sexual harassment allegations, like everyone, I'm an attorney. The governor is entitled to due process. Interestingly enough, though, this same governor asked that Justice Kavanaugh be subjected to a lie detector test, and so maybe the governor would submit to that. But when similar allegations, and maybe they were more harsh for former disgraced Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, were revealed, the governor demanded his resignation. So I think it's time for the governor to use his own standard. But the nursing home cover-up, in many of the ways the governor has governed over New York in terms of his abuse of power on so many other issues. I served in the state assembly. Those are the main reasons that the governor should resign. 15,000 people, at least that we know of, went to an untimely death due to the policies of the governor, and he tried to cover it up. And that is why the governor needs to resign, along with a host of other reasons. I do think he needs to be held accountable, and certainly an investigation should continue when it comes to the sexual harassment claims. But again, he's entitled to due process on those. But we know there's a cover-up. He's basically admitted it when it comes to the nursing home scandal. And even on the vaccine rollout, the governor did such a terrible job and intervened with our counties who already had a plan in place that thousands of vaccines had to be thrown out because they were expired. And many seniors who were in peril had to go without vaccines and had to wait before the supplies were replenished. This guy has failed on so many levels. It's really time for him to go. With all the mounting Democrats even that are calling for his resignation, he really just is not in a position to govern effectively. That's why I've called for his resignation.
We'll continue to monitor that. Representative Claudia Tenney of New York, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Joining us now via Skype is Mallory Quigley, Vice President of Communications for the Susan B. Anthony List. Mallory, welcome. First, what's your reaction that the House passed both the Equality Act and the COVID relief bill without pro-life protections, especially because the previous COVID relief bill did have high protections?
Yes, Catherine, this is a reflection of the reality that elections have consequences. The previous COVID relief packages were overseen by President Trump and the Trump administration, and we had the threat of the president's veto. He, of course, had promised to veto any legislation, no matter how good, if it weakened any existing pro-life protections, such as the Hyde Amendment. And we had pro-life leadership in the Senate with Mitch McConnell. So without having the White House and without pro-life Mitch McConnell, his leadership in the Senate, these bills, we are unable to add them. Even if pro-life amendments are added or offered in the Senate, it's unlikely, because we've lost the Republican majority there, that they would be added to the bill. So this is a reflection of the time that we're in and the election results of 2020.
EWTN News Nightly's White House correspondent Owen Jensen asked White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki if President Joe Biden is concerned that the Equality Act could force doctors to violate their conscience and perform abortions, gender transition surgeries, and sterilizations. Take a listen.
What does President Biden, say about those concerns?
The president's been a long supporter of Roe v. Wade. It has been his consistent belief that should be law, and he will fight to continue to protect that as being law.
Mallory, what is your response to that?
Yeah. Well, Owen has been doing a fantastic job in the briefing room asking these questions of the administration. It's incredibly frustrating as a fellow Catholic to hear the president continue, and those around him continue to affirm that he's a longstanding, supporter of Roe versus Wade, while at the same time trying to claim a mantle of being moderate on this issue. And this, the press secretary has repeatedly pointed to the president's Catholic faith as an excuse for his opposition to the Hyde Amendment. Really, this doesn't make sense. It's speaking out of two sides of the mouth, and the disconnect that is there between the president claiming to be a devout Catholic, but then his legislative priorities and proposals and the things that he and his administration are working on really having a very negative impact on devout Catholics and people of just all faith and conscience who oppose being participating in abortion or those other activities that you mentioned.
You alluded to this earlier, but do you think the COVID relief bill and the Equality Act will get stopped in the Senate or amended to include pro-life protections? What can we expect?
That's what we are working on right now. Our government affairs team and many leaders of pro-life organizations here in Washington, D.C. are working deep into the night, working with allied legislators and their staff to try and correct some of the pro-abortion expansion. The abortion lobby's attempt to use this COVID relief package as a bailout for themselves. I mean, this is just another example of the ways that the pro-abortion lobby and the Democratic Party that supports them have used the pandemic as an excuse to usher in pro-abortion regulations, whether that's expansion of chemical abortion or bailouts for the abortion industry. So it's going to be a tough fight. And I encourage everyone and ask for people to pray for our teams that are working so round the clock.
Mallory, we have less than a minute, but the Equality Act and the American Rescue Plan, it's not popular to speak out against them because of all the positive press and their positive names. But can you quickly underline why it's important the pro-life movement speaks out?
Yes, it's important just to look past the fancy names. Something else like H.R. 1, the so-called For the People Act. What could possibly be there to oppose? Everyone loves equality. It sounds like a great idea. But to really stay educated about what these bills mean, what their impact would be, especially on the pro-life movement, there is a lot of nefarious legislation that's moving forward with, really nice names.
Mallory Quigley with the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you.